SMITE. Where do you think these picks and bans are going to head?
Well, immediately, Gabe, eliminating the Cabrakan choice, which is an excellent option. You don't want to permit that Cabrakan to go through. We've seen way too strong performances from both of these teams, and so it's just safer to go ahead and take it off the table alongside of that Morrigan and the Sylvanas from Soar.
Taking away the comfort picks on the side of the opposition is usually a key strategy if you're trying to get your own dictated strategy in memory of Gabe. With that first pick, electing to still wait to see what it's going to be. It's going to be the Hun Bats. We've seen this time in and time out. First pick.
You can't really go wrong with the bots pick because that AoE control and the CC with his ultimate is just so much setup potential for your team that whether or not you choose to keep drafting AoE based composition, it's just a really strong lockdown potential. But I like the immediate response from Soar Gaming with this Fafnir and Terra. Already tons of frontline potential and a little bit of sustain.
Double Guardian and a lot of control around the objectives, and more importantly after first picking the Hun Bats is making sure that they banned away the Morrigan, so there was no other fear, no evil that they had to worry about. But to respond in kind is going to be a very aggressive support here for Ionic playing this Bacchus.
And Bacchus with Medusa, that's a very solid composition already, considering that Medusa with her ultimate should Ionic find that flop right at the moment that he really needs to. I mean, there's just tons of lockdown potential. And the Medusa with the bots, it's going to be really difficult for Soar to try and fight around any of these early jungle points as well as objectives in general.
And not only does the burst damage exist for Memory of Gabe, it's also going to be the anti-sustain. A little bit of there for the Belch of the Gods. Raw to respond in kind with the Terra. That's some double sustain action, making it very easy now for Soar to make sure that these team fights last longer. And last week, Anister was not in attendance, but this time around he will be here playing the Raw, and we all know what Anister is capable of when he plays that Raw.
We certainly saw Anister with a very strong performance on the Raw last time he pulled it out, and I would expect to see similar gameplay again. And I absolutely love the Scotty pick alongside of the Raw because having the permafrost ability on the Scotty just creates so much havoc, especially when you have a free root set up from the Terra. So combine that alongside of the healing from Raw. It's just free poke, and at the same time, you just have so much peeling potential.
And it's really safe playing the Raw, obviously, from such a long distance, can use his abilities, just waiting for his teammates to set him up. But to respond after these bans, Memory of Gabe taking a very late game Hunter in the form of Rama, and another double Guardian from Memory of Gabe going to be on that Sobek.
Double Guardian, double Hunter, so I mean, they want the peel, they want the front line, and with this kind of draft, the Memory Games certainly have it. And not only that, it's just the counter healing response with the Sobek along with the Bacchus, Belch. It's excellent for them to try and combat into this heavy healer composition because, I mean, 3 out of 5 members on the side of Soar can heal themselves.
All right, Taco, really quickly. You have 2 buttons in front of you. Memory of Gabe, Soar Gaming. Which one you passing, which one you smashing?
I'd have to give it to the left in Memory of Gabe.
In Memory of Gabe, I got to give it to my boys in Soar Gaming. Let's see what the casters have to do and say about it. Aggro and Tom, take it away.
Thanks a lot, TNT. Standing by here with my dad. It's Aggro and myself. Nice little matchup there. Last pick, Thanatos. How about that?
I mean, it's been a popular pick, and it's kind of has dropped down. It's funny how much the Season 4 meta has really developed since the very beginning. Now we're seeing Cupid bans and Scotty picks, whereas Thanatos was first pick, first ban. We haven't seen Freya in months. I mean, it always changes.
We went from a situation where you must have first beginning push in your lane to Nemesis kind of just ran one of the games we watched today. Either way, without further ado, it's Thursday Night Smite. In Memory of Gabe will be coming up very soon, so a little bit of ado. But as we break it down a little bit more, Raw on Anister, why don't we see Raw bans or Raw takes? Because he's shown his best on this mid lane healer.
Yeah, he looks very, very strong on it. Just feels comfortable, and whenever you're making a transition from a different role into a very high skill cap role like in the mid lane where every single cooldown you use is important, you want to be comfortable on it, and Raw definitely seems to be the most comfortable pick for Anister thus far. And it's not only that, but it really does all the things you need a mage to do. He can do the long range damage, he can secure kills pretty easily, secure objectives, and he has that sustain.
Nice. But why don't we see enemy teams take it away? Does it need to be banned? I see where you want to come from without banning it.
Sure.
But you can certainly select it. Most mid laners have a Ra in their arsenal.
Sure.
So I'm very surprised to not see the Ra get picked.
I mean, sometimes it's just not fitting what you want to do with your draft. Not every team likes to run these sustained compositions anymore, where it was pretty prevalent towards the end of Season 3. Not every team is running them these days. And when you look at what In Memory of Gabe is going to do this game with Medusa most likely in that mid lane,
For sure.
they want to be looking for that tower siege damage, that objective burn with those double hunters. Maybe the Ra just wasn't in their plans.
Either way, whatever their plans may be, now we'll get into game. Thursday Night Smite, In Memory of Gabe, taking on their opposition. We'll see how it works as we get into the matchup here. Ionic going to be playing on that Bacchus. Sonoshore on the Hun Bats. And everybody getting ready for this one. Final K has had an interesting start here as he came out of it, so we're going to have a little bit more of a do here. But Final K, I think, is one of the biggest adaptations here that we've seen. Benji left the team in kind of a rough spot, and then they just didn't play for a week. They had to forfeit without a solo leader. They come back and they pick up Final K as we head into game. Thursday Night Smite, In Memory of Gabe, take on their opposition here. And it's Soar. And we'll stick on this Final K point. Being called up from the minor leagues, if you will, the challenger scene, one of the stronger players in said challenger scene. How do you think Final K has fared so far?
I mean, only 1 week under his belt, but he's certainly impressed in that set where Soar is able to get a 2-0 victory. I believe it was over Flashpoint. So this is going to be the real test for him, though, in this solo lane. Up against Walrus, who last season, he was the one who was unproven.
Yeah.
He definitely proved himself through his play. Now it's Final K's turn to try and do the same.
And I have to say, I like the attitude out of Final K. So earlier today, hold that, Andy, he's in trouble. He took a week off, and he's going to be the first one down here. In Memory of Gabe picks up the kill as Wally transfers back to the solo lane.
So we've seen this 3 times today. That is the 3rd time we've seen that exact same thing happen, but Homie Faye, who started on this left-hand side, able to pick up the kill onto Snoopy. So a little bit of different starts all across the map here. Jungler in the duo lane. Walrus, he loops around into that mid lane. It worked this week. But next week, or whenever it's time for LAN, I anticipate some early wards on that backside mid-Harpies because it has happened to too many teams today to really be unprepared for it moving forward.
You know, we saw that last season, and this is kind of a play that's just, it doesn't matter what meta it is. You can always sort of make that wraparound play. You know, he's in a little bit of trouble, but he's on his own home turf for now. There he is. So we saw flashes of it. A couple of teams tried it out last time where they bring the solo lane and then they teleport over. And then we see it again, like you said. I think teams need to adapt. We'll see some vision come out and that be that. So we start the game off with a bang, but everything nice and even. It just happens to start at 1 instead of 0.
Yeah, everyone with a kill right now, at least. Well, both sides, rather. Ionic and Snoopy a little bit behind on this duo lane side, though, and you can see Anidster not quite as behind in that mid lane. Still sitting at level 2, Jigs at level 3, but after this red buff, the back Harpies, and clearing the mid wave, Andy will basically be right there tied up with Herwin in that mid lane, whereas Homie Faye's got a lot of farm to get on this left-hand side. I think he'll stay a little bit ahead of Sinosure.
Straight up, simple question. I just want you to talk to me about Andy's pickup of the Bumba's Mask. We've seen some mid laners go for the jungle item, and not everybody is in the same camp as far as its effectiveness.
No.
How do you feel?
It's completely operational dependent. How are you going to spread the map with your jungler and mid laner? If you're going for the first 3 seasons where it's mid and jungle are always sticking together, clearing buffs together, then it's inefficient to have that Bumba's Mask because only one of the members is going to get the benefit from it. However, if it's Andy and Jigs clearing all the camps, whereas Homie Faye and Vedium are clearing the other camps, then it completely works out. You're getting that heal, you're getting that mana heal as well. So I like the pickup of this situation because Andy and Homie have not been clearing together very often.
So do you feel that it almost tips your hand a little bit? If I'm in Memory of Gabe and I see that Annister has that Bumba's Mask, I know he's not going to be walking around with a wheelage. So that might help me in sort of my, I kind of see my opponent's playbook a little bit, no?
In some ways, yes, but if Soar identify that in Memory of Gabe are trying to invade buffs because they expect there to be less numbers with the multiple Bumba's Mask, then they'll probably just group up and take the fight anyways, try and win that engagement outnumbering in Memory of Gabe. It can work that way, but for such a cheap investment, that 500 gold, even if it's just getting through, getting 2 or 3 extra waves because you have the sustain from the Bumba's Mask to not force you to back, that's enough to get value out of it. So so you're not really worried about it really post 7, 8, 10 minutes.
Don't forget, you can also sell it for a big chunk of change as well, so not too big of a deal. Getting about 300 gold back for it, so definitely have to keep that one in mind. Final K dinging level 6 right here on the solo lane Terra, a pick that has become extremely prevalent. Her ability to just help the team out without even leaving the lane by way of the ultimate is certainly a strong choice. Homie FA in a bad spot, but only if the opposition catch him out. Instead, in memory of Gabe, looking for the elementals, and Homie FA will hide in the corner until they pass.
Just looking to farm up at this stage. A lot of fights early on, but have really been pretty quiet ever since then. 4 minutes in, and we really haven't seen any engagement since those first 2 kills.
I was like, you ever play Amnesia or one of those games where you can't attack, but everything's chasing you? Homie FA just hid in the closet until 4 players passed by him, and then he walked right on out of there. Nice little use of the corridor coming out from the jungler on the side of Soar Gaming, who's looked very strong this season. And with Anster moving over to the mid lane, I think that the conversation was kind of there for Homie FA to be the default best jungler, but Sinosure has shown up this season, transferring over from the SCL to the Pro League here on PC, and Mask has had a lightning season. So I don't think it's as short of a conversation, but Homie FA still being one of the go-to players when you're looking for jungle highlights.
Without a doubt. North American junglers as a whole are at a very, very healthy state right now, all across the board. I mean, you even look towards the bottom of the standings where Flashpoint is sitting, and Mirage can absolutely hold his own against these top-tier junglers. North American junglers were lacking for a little bit. Basically, junglers all across the world were lacking for a little bit. And that's not too much of a surprise considering how important and how impactful jungle can be. If you make 1 or 2 different missteps, it could absolutely lose your team the game. Not just your lane or your role, but your team the entire game. But junglers all across the world have really stepped up as of late in Season 4.
Nobody ever agrees on this. I think jungle is perhaps the hardest position because when it comes out to mechanics, sure, but also decision-making, I see you, Mr. Mid Laner.
Yeah, would you believe that I think mid lane is the hardest position to play in Smite? I think that jungle is the most important position to play in Smite, but I think mid lane is the hardest to play effectively. Because as a jungler, you just have so much control around the map that simply your presence is usually enough to get the job done. Whereas as a mid laner, I mean, if you're playing raw and Andy misplaces 1 heal or misses 1 guaranteed celestial beam in a team fight, that could lose the Soar a game off of that 1 missed ability.
Sure.
Oh, and also you're the focus of everyone on the other team. By the way, I'm not biased at all.
This conversation is always the best to have when it's a little bit too late. You played too many games in a row, and you just turn to your team. You know, it's the same old conversation across the way. So I like to have some fun with it. But truth be told, I think objectively speaking, decision making coming out of the jungle position is one of the more important things,
without a doubt.
And watching the players really react and play accordingly is a lot of fun. And Homie FA has gone from a player that kind of needed a leader once upon a time to a player that is absolutely down to make these decisions. Here he is with Jigs and Andy. They place division. They walk towards the gold, and they're waiting for this check. Here comes the support. Ionic looks around the corner, and he ain't looking anywhere else. Andy gets the kill as he takes down the support. 2 kills in total for Soar Gaming. Jump cut short as the monkey gets taken down by Homie FA. Wonderful ultimate out of the jungler. Look at the cutoff. He's going to come from around as Snoopy jumps up, decides not to tower dive. A little bit too low. If Snoopy was brought low enough to die in a feather step or a nice little combo, that's where Homie was jumping the fence. Love the patience there not to jump the gun.
Not only that, but the trust in his teammates. You see Homie get very low initially in that engagement. The Fear No Evil's dropped by Sino, and it's Homie Faye who eats the brunt of that Petrify coming out of Whirlwind. You see him jump on Suku and think about going away, and then Jigs in his ear, I have med, I have med, we can fight, I have med. Homie turns around, pulls Sino back in, cuts that jump short like you mentioned, and then Soar win the team fight 2-0 instead of just a 1-0.
And that right there, exactly what we were discussing, the decision-making of Homie FA. When you're talking about decision-making with respect to the jungle, you're usually talking about ganks and where to show your most presence, etc. But in-fight decision-making like that as well is also extremely, extremely important when you're an assassin, because you're a glass cannon most of the time.
Yeah.
Single move, single ability makes or breaks the situation. Soar Gaming now, they win the fight. Still a tie game, looking for the vision over here, and actually just the objective. So the red team starts things up. Iana gets grabbed, but was that the right move?
100%. He's completely dead right now. It's Soar peel off that Gold Fury and get the free kill. Now you can make the argument that maybe Annister should have stayed on that Gold Fury and sniped using that ultimate to secure the gold. But either way, if you're trading 2 ultimates for a kill at this stage of the game, it's always the right call.
Exactly. So yeah, you got to weigh the Gold Fury versus that support kill right there. But in the moment, Soar think that they can get the Gold Fury after the fact. Medusa and Hun Bats start heading that direction, but decide to walk away, and still the peel. Nobody even came close.
It's just enough. Look at all the ward coverage that Soar has in this left side jungle, making sure they know exactly where In Memory of Gabe is going every single step of the way. But they didn't have ward coverage on that bottom left-hand Harpy, and the fact that Homie Faye's purification beads were down makes it difficult to want to fight into a Hun Bats where you could easily see him get exploded right off the bat. I mean, you saw how much damage he took in that first engagement on the bottom left-hand Harpies, just between Fear No Evil and Petrify, without any real follow-up damage after that.
I like how Vedium has been involved in all 4 kills versus Jigs' 3. Very interesting for the Hunter to be a little bit more involved in the support.
I mean, Vedium definitely has the potential to be that more supportive sort of hunter. He likes to play the Neath, can help out his team across the map, really wants to team fight more than try and take the solo fights in lane. Really focus on his farm as a hunter and then making an impact in that mid to late game stages. But he can absolutely play the hyper carries too. His ROM play last season during the group stage lands was phenomenal, as well as at Super Regionals. So you know that he has that option available to him, but always willing to team fight with the rest of the squad.
Talking about his farm, he's already almost 2 levels above his direct opposition as Snoopy's building the Devo's gloves. So when the season first started, it was all trans all the time, and slowly but surely, we've seen an adjustment as these hunters come back to the world of lifesteal. Talking to some hunters earlier on, the idea was, look, I do so much damage with Transcendence, I don't even need to build the Aussie. Most players are forgoing lifesteal altogether, but Snoopy not the only player to come back to the Devo gloves.
This is Snoopy saying, yeah, you can do whatever you want in lane early on, but I'm going to fight you later. Homie Faye force uses Purification due to that rotation from Walrus and the Charge Prey. But yeah, so Snoopy's just saying, I'm not worried about the laning phase. It's Scotty. I don't want to fight Scotty 1v1 anyways.
True.
I'm just going to farm up for the mid to late game and make my impact there.
Jigs jumps in, finds a stun onto Heroin, who eats a little bit of damage from Aninster. Eonic, however, brought down below half. Death not going to be found thanks to Andy's ultimate, and Eonic cut off by a fine okay. The solo lane makes the rotation, and it is fruitful. Wally's here as well, tosses up Jigs, 25%. Sobek can't clean it up, but Medusa can. Heroin is going to hurry for that one. 2 kills in total for In Memory of Gabe. Soar still have the kill lead, but very important team fight there for Gabe.
I like the idea from Eonic to engage in that scenario because they knew they'd forced Homie Faye back to base, but the rest of In Memory of Gabe just wasn't on the same page. Took too long to follow up on it.
So no meaningful ultimates available for Soar here on the Gold Fury. Everybody really down for the count, but really no ultimates out of Gabe either outside of the ROM. Andy's ultimate comes up just in time, and Soar are able to
that went to
Gold Fury get snatched.
That went to Gabe. That went to Gabe. The snipe was a little bit too early. Gabe stole it away.
Very surprising play right there. Still going to keep the teams relatively close. Not even 1,000 gold in the lead for In Memory of Gabe. That was stolen by Snoopy. Question mark.
It was stolen by someone. That's all that really matters. Aninster just like spamming the ult button because he knows it's coming up soon. But I think that if In Memory of or Soar rather just hold DPS and wait until that ultimate is ready, then you combine it with the one ult combination that is way more damage than anyone on either team can really do to that Gold Fury right now or at any stage of the game. That's got to be on Andy to secure that. A little bit unfortunate that goes the way of Gabe.
At the same time, like I said, this early on in the game, In Memory of Gabe, they're ahead sub 1,000. This is going to still be basically a tie matchup. I think the team fight earlier on, where In Memory of Gabe got a kill, was perhaps more important than In Memory of Gabe stealing the objective.
I'd agree with that, but if you look at what where the gold lead is, Soar would have been up right around 2,000 gold, and the fact that it's instead Memory of Gabe up like 800 gold, that's a pretty big swing in terms of where Memory of Gabe is.
Right there. It's a snatch away that Soar was already leading by about 1,000. That first team fight brings them down to a smaller lead, and then the Gold Fury snatches it back up to about 1K. Like I said, that team fight really was the important part for me personally. 13 on the clock. We've got 7 kills, and Soar own 5 of them. Very strong performance coming out from these guys with their rookie solo laner.
They've been killing it right now, but On the same side, Herwin's had an excellent game on this Medusa. He's got both kills right now for Gabe, as well as the farm has been really excellent for him, sitting up a level right now on top of Annenster, despite Andy being involved in 2 more kills than him.
That just doesn't surprise me, man. Herwin has been one of the most exciting players for all of Season 4 in my mind.
I agree with you. He's
just
been,
out of control.
Even during the relegations process, he just made so many hype plays in that mid lane. Gabe is kind of quietly followed expectations. They aren't the top team. They're right underneath the top teams in North America. You're always waiting for them to bust through and look like world beaters. They haven't quite yet, but Herwin has definitely had a really, really strong split, as has most of Gabe, really.
For his entire career, Herwin kind of played with a chip on his shoulder, whether it was the fans, the commentators, myself included, just kind of saying, this guy isn't good enough. And Herwin said, look, yes, I am. And he slowly rose. We saw him going all the way back to Fat Chunks, playing with the Roar, you know? And then we see him on Denial and stuff like that. And here, he finally takes that chip off his shoulder and he's throwing it in everybody's face, saying, man, I am one of the best players in the league. And he's absolutely putting it on display. There have been a number of games where Gabe wins off of the back of the jungle mid synergy between Herwin and Soar by itself.
Without a doubt. And we've always seen flashes of that greatness from Herwin. You know, for Denial and Flashpoint last season, he has these unbelievable games, and then there's just some that just aren't quite there. It's always been about consistency in terms of his play. Season 4, I think, is the most consistent we've ever seen him.
And speaking to him at Super Regionals last year, he's the first one to say it. He's like, look, I'm a little inconsistent. Sometimes I get out of position trying to prove myself, like Snoopy's trying to do here.
Ooh.
Evening up with Vedium, and as the levels come together, Snoopy's ready to take that one-on-one. But Vedium quickly realizes that he might lose it to the ROM, and he's going to play it safe.
And there's that lifesteal coming into play right there for Snoopy, as well as that matchup between Rom and Scotty, whereas normally Vedium can trust Caldier to get that close that distance and then pop the ultimate to give him that immunity and root the enemy hunter in place. But because of the Astral Arrows counting 2 off of that health bar for Scotty every single time, Vedium's just half a second late at giving the dog immunity and damage immunity, and as a result, the ultimate's basically wasted.
Before we move on, I want to make sure I finish. I kind of left it empty-handed. I said Herwin kind of acknowledged the fact that, yeah, he finds himself out of position sometimes trying to prove to people or make that play, but that's been one of the bigger changes, I think, come this season, is that Herwin is confident in his abilities. He knows he's better than some of these other players, so we're not seeing him reach as much. Part of that is him personally, and part of that is also how adept his team is at helping him find these kills. Sonoshore, Walrus, Yannick, and Snoopy are all these top-tier players that Herwin previously hasn't been surrounded by. So he's not proving himself. He doesn't have to prove for himself, and he can lean on the teammates instead of trying to be that hero.
He did have some top tier teammates on Soar last season before DreamHack and at DreamHack, but you know, just because you're playing with top tier players doesn't mean it's always going to work out. There's so many different factors in terms of teams, and so little of them are involved in how you actually play the game.
That's absolutely the truth. We saw Mask flourish on LG versus his 2 previous teams, and it's the same idea. Herwin just fitting in better with this team all across the way, whether it's, like we said, behind the scenes or right here in gameplay. Soar starting their 2nd gold fear of the game, hoping this one's not snatched. Instead, Walrus going to engage on Homie FA, but he's by himself. Walrus still finds a way out. Nice little jump in by Jakes to cut off the solo lane exit. Walrus still finds a way out, using the ultimate damage on Fine OK, who is fine. Knockup coming out from the Homie FA. Pull and gone. Eonic dies to the feather step. Nice job from Homie FA.
Fine, okay, around the backside. Herwin, no purification beats or Aegis, and Annenster hits him with the Celestial Beam. 2 down now for In Memory of Gabe. Sinosure and Snoopy both still have their ultimates, but it looks like neither are interested in trying to seal away this Gold Fury. So we're going to be able to secure this one for themselves.
And that one is a little bit more impactful, Aggro, as that's going to bring the lead to 2,000 or about 1,500, which is much more tangible than the 600-700, right? What are you getting out of that? Each player buys an extra ward. Good for you. 1,500 is the beginning of a statement that you can actually begin to end the conversation. Fire Giant Jr. taken here by Soar. No contest. Again, that's where this lead is going.
And that's going to put that lead up above that 2,000 gold marker, really right there at that 2,000 gold mark.
87 gold short, pal.
Sorry. It's a little off with my math, I suppose. But either way,
It happens.
like you mentioned, this is where you start to see some tier 1 start to materialize in terms of leads and item builds. But really, I mean, you may say, oh, a ward here or a ward there, but that's really all that leads eventually come down to is what can we get out of our lead? And vision is one of the easiest ways to extend a lead where you're spending the gold and keeping up in items, whereas the enemy has to make a choice. Do we spend the gold and fall behind in items, or do we just go without vision? Most of the time when you go without vision, you end up not being able to complete your items because you're dead.
We saw that happen earlier on. There's the ultimate out of Shore. Going to send 3 different players in 3 different directions, but not really enough to find anything off of it. A rare misstep by Shore, a rookie here in the Pro League that has really proven to be very strong.
Walrus knocked up and tried to get pulled back in by Homie but it didn't pull him back. There's the lurking in the waters, trying to give him some CC immunity. Walrus not worried about it, but maybe he should be. But FineOK's Monolith goes down before he can find the root.
Vedium's going to find the CC immunity right before the belly flop comes up on top, and because of it, Ionic gets punished. Support takes down support, and he's going to bring the light to Walrus as the solo lane falls down. Vedium gets a kill. Soar on a tear, pushing forward. Snoopy gone. Andy credit for that one. Jumping away is going to be Shore. He's the last one alive, and Vedium makes him join his team. Deicide, Soar on the good side. 12-2. Soar running this show.
Just such good counter-engaging there by Soar. They wait for Gabe to be the first ones in, and Shore's ultimate at the very beginning of that engagement isn't to really fight, it's to get purification beads out. But Soar recognized that team fight ultimate is down, and they can just take the fight to Gabe.
Shore's ultimate, so when you're playing a Hunt Bats, if you don't have that Ares or hell, the Oregon, right? If you don't have another team fight controlling ultimate, it is a very heavy ultimate to use just to strip beads. It is almost too powerful in my opinion. I would rather see Whirlwind or Walrus come out, try and strip the beads. Even Ionic, sometimes people need to beads that intoxicate, because Fear No Evil, that's a game-changing ultimate, man.
It is, but with how much CDR Hunbats is usually build and how low of a cooldown it is anyways, you really can do a good job of baiting with Fear No Evil and then reinitiating whenever that's up later on in the team fight. And especially with the fact that Sino has that Hydra's Lament and the Jotun's Wrath already completed,
30%.
It isn't too bad to use that in that scenario, but you have to be wary that for the next 60 seconds or so, you are vulnerable. Your team is vulnerable, and Soar recognized that better than Gabe did.
Yeah,
punished him for it.
That's the key right there, is that you have a minute window. A minute seems like such a short amount of time, but in Smite, that is
forever.
Exactly, it's an eternity. It's an era. It is just so long of a moment that 60 seconds, you're just waiting. And Soar took full advantage. That window, I mean, we talk about windows being open a little bit. They took the side of the house down and they just walked through the sheetrock.
I mean, in 60 seconds, your entire team can be gone in 60 seconds.
That one physically hurt me. It's almost as bad as Hindu's early. Tier 2 tower.
Oh, it wasn't even close to that bad, please.
Aggressed onto by Soar. Knock up, and you got punished, buddy. Pulled in, but it's Walrus. Tanky support. Well, solo lane. Either way, here's the big initiation. Shore's ultimate a little bit more effective this time around aggro, but still not a kill.
And he tries to get away, and he will, courtesy of the Aegis. Can't say the same for Whirlwind because FineOK comes around the back and punishes the mid laner who had both relics available there, I think. Unless they just came off cooldown, Whirlwind just got a little bit too surprised there by FineOK.
So Thursday has not been my day for picks. I said that this was easily Gabe's, and that Soar, since losing Benji, was in a bad spot. And FineOK responded, and he just said, since losing Benji, ? Thinking emoji. That's the confidence that allows this young player to come through and make that loop around behind the tier 2, right? This guy's playing with his team like he's been a long-time member of Soar Gaming.
But it's not only that, it's the fact that we are late in the split. This team took time to meld together. You had a big move. I mean, Anister's been playing jungle since Smite was thought about by somebody, like somewhere. He's been playing jungle forever, and for him to move to mid lane, it's going to take a little bit of time.
And it did.
Not only did it take some time for him to get ready, but the team chemistry to be there with Vedium, the new hunter, for Jigs in that duo lane. Not only is Soar finally have a steady solo laner that they can trust, but they just look like a better cohesive unit. And to me, it's really not that much of a surprise that they look this good, because this is a team that everyone was talking about as having potential to be top 4 in North America. There's no reason they can't play like it now.
They're certainly pulling it out. In memory of Gabe, wind up with something. They're able to pick up the Portal Demon right here. Jigs trying to stop the retreat. Blink forward, homie FA grabs one. The decision, the target selection! He grabs the right target! Snoopy goes down instead of Iotic. Homie FA thinking quickly in the instant. Herwin very low, gonna run away. Iotic and Walrus also trying to find an exit. Half of Soar taking care of the tower. The other half taking care of the solo lane. Down goes Walrus for kill number 15. Soar, ooh, ouch, yum.
Just such insane play. The mechanics overall by everyone on Soar right there are nuts. Not only is it Jigs going forward where it looks like he's in a 1v5 scenario, 1v4, finds the stun onto Snoopy, who he knows doesn't have his purification beads, and that not only stuns Snoopy, but it slows the rest of Gabe down. Yep. Like you mentioned, Homie Faye repositioning to pull the correct target back in. Oh, and by the way, did you see Anister's insane blind snipe over the wall that hit 2? It didn't get any kills, but it made me feel really good on the inside.
That play right there. I mean, that right there is when players ask me, uninitiated players, what's the difference between a really good guy and a pro league Smite player? That. How long is a player knocked up in the air to make the decision, reposition and ult instead of just slamming down on your button? That right there in the moment, man, that's what makes Homie FA the guy that we were talking about earlier. His ability to make those split-second decisions, adjustments, and just pull out the game. That's going to give the right side entirely to Soar. All 3 Phoenixes still up, but the tier 2 and tier 1 tower goes down. That gives 2,000 more gold to Soar. And today is the day of absorbent leads. Almost 15K in the lead for Soar Gaming right now. 15-2 as we hit number 25 on the minute. And it is just an insane match here for Soar. In memory of Gabe, just not as hot. Andy, gone for last week, coming back with a bang.
He's just been, like you mentioned during picks and bans, why doesn't anyone take the Raw away from him? Well, you don't really want to ban it because then you leave other stuff open. I don't care. Yeah. Ban Raw.
Because, well, here's the deal for me is that, you mentioned that picking Raw, some teams don't want to play that sustain comp. Honestly, you don't need to play a sustain comp with Ra. I don't think we're seeing a sustain comp really be played by Soar. He's just a long-range mage. Yeah. He's being played like his brother Thoth right now. That's the mindset out of Anister. Sure, a heal comes down once in a while, but they're not siege back up, heal, siege back up, heal. They're just shooting people in the face.
And he's doing it with the best of them right now. 4, 1, and 9. And look at the player damage across the board right now for Gabe. I mean, Vedium has been killing it. Hasn't had that many kills to show for it, but he's doing all the damage.
Walrus knocked up and buried in the ground. Homie FA starts the team fight off. Herwin grabs 2 with the ultimate, has to run away, knowing that Andy's going to pop his of his own. Vedium picks up his 4th kill of the game. Aggro, this could be the final push. That's going to be a death on a Snoopy. Andy picks it up. If they wipe in memory of Gabe here,
they could be. Ionic the only one left, and I can't say that for long. He finds a multi-man Intoxicate, but Vedium gets his 5th kill, 2 for the Hunter in that last engagement. Deicide the way of Soar. And I think you're right, Tom. I think they're not even worried about that Fire Giant.
20 seconds is the time that you're going to see Walrus come back. I love my Sobek, but a single Sobek is not going to keep Soar at bay. 20-2, 69 to 53,000.